Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. Today, our guest is Jack Gruber. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you, Ernest.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, real quickly, Jack is the owner of a company called the JMAR Analytics. He's based out of Bothell, Washington. His company primarily focuses on not only business consulting, but he helps a lot of business owners deal with the 453 tax deferral process. I know that's a little complicated. Sometimes it's a type of topic that a lot of people try to avoid, but I think it's very important, especially if you're an investor. I also had the privilege of listening to Jack a couple of months ago speak at our luncheon over at the CCIM, which is the Certified Commercial Investment Member luncheon that we had a couple of months ago. And I thought it was so informative that I wanted to bring him onto the show as well, and to also bring light to, these two topics that we want to talk about today. So real quickly, Jack, before we jump in, would love for you to talk a little bit about yourself, if you will.
Well, I'm not sure I'm the most interesting person in the world, but I've had an interesting career. I actually retired 5 years ago. Fundamentally, I failed retirement. So I started a company specifically for the purpose of helping people who were selling large appreciated assets, such as real estate, businesses, etc., with the questions concerning capital gains taxes. And the most important part of that is simply understanding that there are several options out there for dealing with capital gains tax. Prior to all of this, I spent 32 years with Russell Investment Company, where I ran the East Coast for their registered investment advisory program, had several different roles over the span of 32 years. Before that, I was a city manager. So I have a rather diverse background. That's probably more information than anybody wants to know about me. That's a little of my background.
Well, it sounds like you've got quite a bit of experience, that's for sure. But it led you here. So now you've become an expert. Now, real quickly, before we jump in, from my understanding, you're one of a few, if not the only individual that specializes in the 453 tax deferral process in Washington state. Is that right?
As far as I know, but I've actually looked for other participants in this work because it's always nice, even if someone is a competitor, to be able to sit down and compare notes and learn from one another. And to the best of my knowledge, I'm the only person in the greater Seattle area for sure, and I believe in the state of Washington and possibly the state of Oregon, because there they have very high capital gains tax, and I do some work there also.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, I think we've got the right person then. Like I said, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about, the let's start off with the 1031 exchange first. As you know, we have multifamily investors that listen to this show. And so I thought it'd be very important to step through what that process looks like. How do people get involved? How do they find a facilitator? But also, for those that are trying to get in, maybe as newer investors into the real estate arena. So do you mind telling us a little bit about, what is 1031 exchange to begin with?
All right. Well, 1031 exchange is one of about 8 registered investment tax deferral programs provided by the IRS. They fall into categories. There's the exchange options, there's installment sale options. Most recently, there's a new option called the economic opportunity zone option. Speaking about the 1031 specifically, that falls under the exchange options. And what it means is you are allowed, when you sell your appreciated property, assuming the math is right. And I'm one side note here. Simply because a person can do a 1031 exchange doesn't necessarily mean they should do it. It all depends on the math and the financial advantage or disadvantage of doing it. But with a 1031, it's an excellent program if you're selling appreciated real estate and your goal is to get another piece of real estate, exchange it for another piece of real estate, so you can begin the depreciation process. You can do any number of these over your lifetime. At the end of that period, assuming you've done 3, 4, 5, some number, and when you are gone, you get a stepped up basis in the asset value, which means the heirs to your estate do not have to pay the capital gains tax. That has been challenged in court. It stands, although there is some discussion from time to time about doing away with that. So it's a way to defer your capital gains simply by exchanging one property for another. And there's a series of rules, and I'm no reason to get down in the weeds with all the rules, but There are some time frames, a 45-day selection period, 180-day closing period, etc. How you get involved in this is, well, talk to your real estate agent, talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer, your tax attorney. If you can't find anybody else, give me a call and I can maybe head you in the right direction. I do not personally do 1031 exchanges. I'm not the facilitator. However, I work with a lot of those folks, and there are some advantages in the kind of facilitator if they have experience across, say, more than one deferral option can be advantageous to you. And so I know some of those. I'm happy to help. Doesn't cost you a dime to pick up the phone and call me, and I'll try to help you go in a direction that'll be beneficial.
Exactly. That's very good. Thank you. And so are 1031 exchanges tax-free?
I think it's fair to understand that the idea that the IRS has had for the last 100 and almost 12 years now, they've been providing various forms of tax deferrals. It is not their intent that you not have to pay your tax. It is their intent that they give you a slight advantage in deferring the capital gains tax, which spurs on transactions, which can help the basic growth of the tax base, help employment, etc. They have fundamental economic reasons for doing this, but it is not their intent that you avoid tax. The 1031 is a bit peculiar in that sense because with it, as I said, should you pass away owning a 1031 property, your heirs to your estate would get a stepped-up basis, just like in the stock market. A stock would get a stepped-up basis, and in effect, no one would pay the capital gains tax. But most people don't want to do that because it means you have to die to make that work. So you just have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
That's usually not in someone's estate planning.
Right. Yeah, usually is not. Are there any types of qualifications, like who qualifies for a 1031?
It comes down to the sale of the property itself. That is what triggers the potential deferral of the capital gain, is simply the sale. And that's the same across all tax deferral options. It's driven by the sale itself and not by some other economic measure.
Okay. And you did mention like the time frame, there's certain requirements. Now, are there different types of 1031 exchanges?
Under the exchange options, there is the 1031, the 1030, which is basically the same thing, but 1033 is for eminent domain, meaning the government is taking your property for some public use. And the restrictions are fundamentally the same. You get a little longer time frame, you get a little more flexibility with your like property requirements, but those are two. Another one under exchange options is a 721 up REIT, umbrella protection REIT, where you can transfer property into a REIT. It's a little more complicated. Then there's another one called a DST, or Delaware Statutory Trust. You can use all of those in different forms under the exchange options. Which one should you use? Well, it depends on what you're trying to resolve. I'm asked the question continually, which is the best option? Which one should I use? It's really the wrong question. The question you need to ask yourself is, what am I trying to accomplish? If my goal is to simply get another like building and begin the depreciation process, without question, the best option is a 1031 exchange. If you want money out of the sale, 1031 will not provide that. You're going to exchange one property for the other. So you go back and ask yourself, and I'll take people through this exercise, what is it you're actually trying to accomplish with the sale of your property?
Yeah, that's probably the best question, is what is your overall end goal that you want to
Correct.
to do? If you want to go into retirement, or are you looking to maybe pass it along generationally? That's another thing to take a look at. Okay.
That is exactly right.
Now I'd like to jump and switch gears to, the 453 deferral capital gains tax. Can you step us through at a high level, what is the 453, deferral process?
There are two basic classifications of deferrals. One is the exchange options, which we talked about. The other is the installment sale. 453 falls under the installment sale options. Installment sale deferral is the oldest option on the IRS books. It was put into place in 1913. So it's been around over 100 years. With a 453, it allows you to sell your property and receive your money in payments or at some future time. there are two basic rules to installment sales. First is what creates an installment sale, and that is the simple fact that at least one payment to you, the seller, has to be made in a future tax period. So if we were to close, for instance, this year in the year 2022, you would have to receive at least one payment in the year 2023 or some future year. In fact, you could receive all of the payments in a future year, but at least one of them. That's the first rule. And so it's like any other sale with that one peculiar thing of future tax rate. The second rule is that you do not have to pay the tax on the sale until you actually receive the money. That sounds silly, I know, but if you go back in history, back to say 1913, the reason this came about was prior to that, the IRS did not recognize installment sales. So let's say you and I were, we were selling property, one of us selling to the other one. And let's say I'm selling you a building for $1 million. Well, you don't have $1 million, but you had, say, $200,000. So we work out this little deal where each year you're going to pay me $200,000. At the end of 5 years, you're going to own the building. That was fine, but the IRS did not recognize that. Even though I was only going to get $200,000, I had to pay the entire tax on the entire sale in that first year. Well, that began to create some problems as the economy grew, et cetera. So they created 453, which allowed you then to sell the property, create this kind of arrangement, and then only have to pay the tax each year. So that's kind of some underpinnings. How I use a 453 is in those cases where the individual does not want to exchange, say, real estate. And you have to remember, in a 1031, since 2017, the only viable property in a 1031 is real estate, real asset. You cannot sell a business. You cannot sell intellectual property such as a patent or collectibles under the 1031 exchange. So how do you defer the tax there? You use a 453 because in a 453, it allows you to sell the asset. We have a qualified intermediary in the same way you do in a 1031 exchange. You receive your money in a tax-free form, and then you can defer your capital gains tax for up to 30 years. So it allows you to use what's referred to as the time value of money. If you owe Uncle Sam $100,000, rather than handing him the $100,000, you can actually invest that for the next 30 years and then pay the $100,000 tax. So it gives you extreme leverage with your money. And I work with a number of financial professionals to help them, to help people do this, to find the proper investments so that they benefit from the availability of this tax deferral option.
Now, the other question I wanted to ask you is, are there any 453 tax deferral implications or things that are happening for this upcoming tax season?
The last changes that took place, and none of these were with the 453, the last changes we saw were in 2017. In 2017, the regulations on 1031 exchange changed. It used to be you could do almost anything in a 1031. I know of a wealthy East Side family with a multi-million-dollar art collection who's been doing 1031 exchanges for years with museums around the world. They can no longer do that. So that changed in the 1031. The other big change in tax deferrals was the addition of the economic opportunity zone, sometimes referred to the Oz option, where the governor designated certain areas that needed revitalization, and investing in those can give you tax advantage also.
That was the other question I was going to ask you. So thank you for asking that. So that's option to invest in those areas. What's the percentage of capital gains tax that you can actually receive or decrease if the investment's held for 5 to 7 years?
Average, you're looking at deferring 94 cents on the dollar you get to defer of the capital gain. So what you have to do, and why the math is so important, is that people become focused on the sale price. Well, the sale price is nice, and the bigger the sale price, the happier you're going to be. But remember, you had an initial cost to buy the property. You have put Maybe you've improved the property or the business. So there are a lot of things you don't have to pay capital gains on. So we have to go through all of those. I work with your CPA, your tax attorney. We'll go through those and figure out exactly how much of your money is exposed to the capital gains tax. And once we know that, then we can run some pretty simple parallel runs to see if it makes sense for you to do a tax deferral or not. That's what I spend my days doing, is running math charts for people and for CPAs to see if in a given situation, the numbers work out to the benefit of the seller to utilize a tax deferral. And if I look at 10 deals, I can tell you with a 453, probably 5, 6, maybe 7 of those, the math doesn't make any sense. It will be 2 or 3, 4 that it actually makes sense for. So it's really about the numbers, as it usually is with monetary exchange. It's all about the numbers.
Right. I know that we briefly chatted about this, but if you can just make sure that folks understand that if you choose a facilitator, you want to be very careful to choose the right one from the very beginning, because you can't switch them right during the process.
Right. This is particularly important with the 1031 exchange. Now, you have to remember, the only thing you can do in a 1031 exchange is real estate. So if you got a business, you can't do a 1031 anyway. You're going to come to me and we'll talk, see if doing a 453 makes sense. But in a 1031, anyone that's done one of these knows that there are certain risks in the process. And the risks are that there are some time restrictions. For instance, the way it works is you sell your property, you utilize what's called a qualified intermediary or an exchange facilitator. It's someone stands between the seller and the money, because in tax law, once you touch the money, you owe the tax. So how this works is you sell to the exchange facilitator, who sells to the buyer that you negotiated with. The money comes back and is held in escrow. You then go out and find another piece of property, and you pay for that property out of that money that's being held in escrow. So in fact, the seller never touched the proceeds, and that's what allows you to do the deferral. However, imagine you get into the middle of this and you've got this 45-day selection, and you've got 180, and you've got 180-day closing period. You've got other restrictions. And let's say in the middle of it, that it simply goes sideways. You can't make a deal. You can't find the right piece of property. Maybe what you do find and you want to buy, you're ending up having to pay 20 or 30% more than you think the value is worth. You're stuck. Well, if you've used a good exchange facilitator, someone that knows how to do both 1031 and 453, you can literally midstream change directions. And now if the 1031 doesn't work out, you can do a 453, receive your money at closing in a tax-free form, then wait as long as you want to go out and buy a piece of property, because you're no longer under the 1031 regulations and rules. So I've done several of these, and it's really helped people out. However, the key is what you said in the first place, Ernest, and that is you have to have an exchange facilitator that knows how to do both the 1031 and a 453. I have a lady I work with, and she's been doing this for 30 years now. And she's one of the few, quite honestly, it's a little like me, she's one of the few I've found that actually has experience doing both sides of that transaction. So if you have any concern, holler at me. It doesn't cost, I'm not going to charge you a dime for any of this. And so it doesn't cost you anything, but I can connect you with this exchange facilitator if you think your 1031 might go sideways on you. It's always nice to have a backup plan. I realize what I just gave you was a whole lot of things, and it can get quickly complicated. Just call me and I'll walk you and your CPA through it.
That's perfect. Well, that's why you're the business coach and the consultant, right? So you provide advisory services. Another question is, are there any exemptions if you hold onto a multifamily property for, say, 10 plus years?
It's short-term, long-term. In the economic opportunity zones, yes. In that situation, 10 years and beyond, the capital gains gets removed. Any capital gains beyond that point gets removed, and that can be very advantageous. But that's only in the 1031, in the economic opportunity zone options. That is a great deferral option, by the way. The one thing I caution people on is, remember, there's a reason it's called an opportunity zone. It's because it is somewhat depressed, and it's decided that you need to pump new life into it. So all the decision up front is extremely important. If someone's interested in doing an economic opportunity zone, have them reach out to me. I don't do those, but I have a lot of contacts, and I've got both attorneys and facilitators of economic opportunity zones who I have watched and researched, and they do a good job. And I'm happy to connect you with them if that would be a benefit.
All right. Jack, that's great. Where can our listeners learn to find out more about you, and how can they get in touch with you?
Well, probably the easiest way is you can pull up my website. I've got both a coaching website and the tax deferral website, but I will spell it out for you. It is Jack Gruber at JMAR Analytics, and that sounds like a mouthful. So let me spell it out. It's just Jack, JACK, dot Gruber, GRUBER, at, and it's JA-MARANALYTICS.com. And if you look at that, none of that is separated, obviously, in a email, but it's jmaranalytics.com is what it says. And then you can always pick up the phone and call me. My number 425-365-7160. So you can always pick up the phone and call me, or contact you. You know how to get a hold of me. So,
that's right. Yeah, folks, you can reach out to me, and I can definitely connect you to Jack as well. So either way, whatever works for you. Now, the one last question I wanted to ask you, Jack, is I know you give presentations regularly. Do you have anything upcoming? Folks can actually come and see you.
Got 4 speaking engagements coming up in the next month, but they're all 4. One is in a CPA office, and one is in a law office. Two are in real estate offices. I've got 5 actually, and one is in a business brokerage office. So I'll go in and do teaching sessions in that kind of environment. If somebody wants me to do a presentation for them, I'm always happy to do it. I'm one of those strange people. I enjoy talking about tax deferrals, which means you probably should question everything I say to begin with, because it means I'm a little bit crazy. But I enjoy doing that, and I'm happy to do a presentation for anybody that could benefit from it.
Thank you, Jack. So there you have it, folks. Hope you found this very helpful, and that this will give you at least higher level context of what a 1031 exchange is, or 453 tax deferral process. Again, more of the details, you can reach out to me or Jack directly, and he'd be happy to step you through that into more detail. But I hope this was very helpful for you. And until the next time, for the next episode, take care, everyone.